Hello and welcome to the Vacayability Rest Stop podcast. Vacayability is a review website where people with disabilities or unique abilities can rate and review places based upon accessibility. Accessibility doesn't just mean physical, but includes all types of accessibility needs: physical, blind and low vision, deaf and hard of hearing, sensory friendly, allergy friendly, and more. Head to www.vacayability.com to check it out. Each episode, take a break from your norm, and we will be talking about a different accessibility or inclusion tourism topic with a different guest. I am today's host, Natasha Graves, the founder of Vacayability. Today, talking about being a grown up to a kiddo with special needs with our guest, Havi. Javi lives in Minnesota and works in human services as a support planner for Minnesota's self directed waiver programs and as a person centered planner with a focus on end of life planning with people with terminal or life limiting illnesses. Javi tells us that she has an occasionally charming husband and three adventurous stepsons, one of whom has a rare terminal illness. Javi is passionate about traveling and accessibility and supporting people to create an end of life plan that reflects their wishes clearly and thoughtfully. So, without further ado, let's welcome Javi. Hey, Javi.
Hey, thanks, Natasha. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm glad you're here. So, a little bit of background. I met Javi online. We've actually never met in person. We met on a travel group online, and we connected just because we have um, the accessibility thing in common, and realized that the group we were in wasn't really tailored to our needs in terms of accessibility. So that's how we met.
Or interested in being.
Or interested in being. That's very true. So that's how we met, and I'm glad we met online, and now we became Facebook friends and online friends.
Yeah.
So Javi,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit more about yourself. Tell our listeners a little more about yourself.
So, I just Minnesota girl, born and raised. Really like to travel and get out as much as I can. Spend time with the fam. And the occasionally charming husband. I really, I enjoy my work a lot. I love working with people to find resources to support their needs. And I after with Mason, that's my oldest stepson, with his diagnosis, it became very clear to me that people don't really like, to talk about death, and it is a hard thing to talk about. But I think that it can be it's important to me that people feel supported and like they have a plan for when that sort of thing happens, because it happens.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about Mason?
So Mason he turned 18 in April.
Wow.
He Yeah, he's he's not so little anymore. He's taller than me if he were, standing upright.
Yeah.
So he's a big boy, and we we have a stair climbing chair for him because we live in a split level, which is completely ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Not accessible at all.
Not at all. So we're
No.
trying to get into a Rambler. But, the things that come along with that are like, forgot to charge the battery. So I have done a FaceTime video where I'm carrying this man-sized, this young man down the stairs. And I'm like, hey, okay, I'm keeping you on FaceTime just in case we go tumbling together.
Right.
And I'm going to charge the
Just
thing
so
after
you
this.
know, yeah.
But Mason was hitting a lot of his milestones, some of them not so much. But, walking, talking, hitting a ball, not really riding a bike, but able to maneuver his electronic Jeep. And then things started happening. He started falling eventually. He started having seizures eventually. We're fortunate to live really close to the Mayo Clinic here in Minnesota.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And Yeah, it has been wonderful. And after years of trying to figure it out, initially he was diagnosed with autism, but then it was like, oh, these seizures, etc., don't really work with that.
Right.
So they did a skin biopsy test where they grow the cells to see what's going on, fibroblast testing, and it was determined that he has Niemann-Pick type C, which is a super rare terminal disease. There's only about 500 cases in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a big shock. So that's, and since then now he's not able to speak verbally. He's not able to walk anymore. He uses a wheelchair, and he has a G-tube. So there's other things, too, but those are kind of the main things.
A little bit about Mason, and I know you had mentioned when you were introducing yourself that he's your stepson. So were you aware of, or was he showing symptoms, or were you aware of him being chronically ill before you met his father?
No.
Okay.
No, I was not. He wasn't. We got married in October 2011.
Okay.
And Mason
well, happy anniversary or late anniversary.
Thank you. At the beginning of the pandemic, he was before we realized how much things were going to change. My husband was saying, oh, what are we going to do for our anniversary this year? And we had been stuck together with nobody else except the kids for a few days. And I was like, let's just see if our marriage makes it that far first.
I feel like a lot of people were feeling that way. Well, that's interesting though, because I think one of the things that people think about or people struggle with sometimes is dealing with kiddos with chronic illness and terminal illness and how that affects your marriage and that those relationships. People don't really think about that, and if they do, or if you're in that situation, it's difficult. It's
Absolutely. And the percentage rates of second marriages are already really high divorce rates.
Right.
And then you throw in these kind of, it really complicates it. And I've seen it with a lot of people who have had really strong marriages, but when you throw this in, it's tough. It can be really tough.
Yeah. So how do you navigate that?
So for us, it works well because we have an awesome working relationship with Mason's mom and stepdad.
That's great.
So we have, it's huge, and we live within 2 miles of them.
Oh, that's even better.
And we split time. Yeah. Well, we were going to move further, and then it was like, oh, Mason takes 45 medications a day.
Yeah.
Something is going to get forgotten. So right now we're driving back and forth, passing each other on the main drag all the time. Like, oh, I forgot the oxygen.
Hey, go.
Oh,
just throw it out the window.
Gotcha. So it's been really great that we can split the time. And Mason has 2 younger brothers who are 14 and 12.
Oh, wow.
Who also,
teenagers.
Active young boys. Yeah. So they like to stay busy too. So it works really well that we have 4 adults that get along awesome, and our families.
Yeah, that's great, because that's a huge support and people to rely on. And there are a lot of people that can't co-parent well, even without a kiddo with special needs. So that's so awesome that you guys can do that. And so along the same lines, how do you balance Mason with the other 2 teenagers? Like, how do you balance that time? Because I know Mason needs a lot of attention. So how do you balance?
So a lot of times, we have a schedule, but we don't really follow that strictly, which is great, because so when we found out that the kids were going to have distance learning, one of them, and the other one was going to be pushed out a week, at 10 p.m. on Saturday, we decided, hey, let's take a road trip since the kids don't need to be in school for a week.
Yeah.
And so by 2 p.m. the next day, we had swapped Mason. And I mean, his mom is awesome with that. She wants the boys to have every experience they can. So
That's
they kept
so
Mason
great.
for a week so we could take the other boys. But then in the summer, we also, like, we took Mason up to a cabin to make sure Mason's getting out and seeing things and having
Yeah.
experiences. We've been a little wary of flights in this, I mean, before the pandemic, but the last flight Mason took was to Myrtle Beach last summer, and he ended up having a seizure in the swimming pool.
Oh my goodness.
Which, yeah, and it was while the hurricane was coming, so
The kind of luck that you have. Yeah, it's
yeah. He was with his mom and stepdad at that point, but on that trip, and we were back here, and they ended up having to drive home. It took like 24 hours with, spread out over days because he was in the hospital.
Right.
And those are things that, speaking about accessibility and travel, having travel insurance, even if you think everything's looking pretty good.
Always have the travel insurance. I don't care if it costs you a little bit more, always take the travel insurance.
100%. I have learned that lesson now.
The hard way?
I did not know that lesson before. Yes, the hard way. Unfortunately. But, and, exploring beforehand what medical providers accept insurance, what hospital is going to be able to treat a kid with a disease this rare,
right, Right, yeah, because you can't go everywhere. Small hospitals be like, what? We have never even heard of
what's
this.
Name and pick? We talked about, that was an asterisk in our medical school.
I'm so glad, back to the original question, I'm so glad that, like, you can have that one-on-one time with the kiddos and make sure that that they're being heard too, even with Mason. And having that support again is just so awesome. Having their mom and stepdad, that's so great.
It is. It works out wonderfully.
Yeah. So I know you had mentioned before about the G-tube. So for listeners who don't know what a G-tube is, there are many people who cannot tolerate eating by mouth or taking medications by mouth. For whatever reason, swallowing disorders, gastroparesis, where the stomach does not digest well, esophageal dysmotility, so the esophagus doesn't work well for whatever reason. So there is a tube that the hole is made in the skin and through the stomach, and the tube goes in the stomach, and you can feed directly. It's like a liquid protein shake consistency type nasty thing that smells kind of bad.
Oh, that smell.
Yeah, the smell is so awful. That goes through the tube, and you can either be hooked up through a pump, or you can do bolus feeds where you can just directly put the feed through the tube. And that's how people get nutrition. They don't eat by mouth, or they can eat by mouth sometimes, but a lot of the nutrition goes through the G-tube that's directly in the stomach. So can you talk a little bit more about traveling with a G-tube and having to deal with all the supplies? And I mean, even the 45 medications. Can you talk a little bit more about traveling with those things?
Yeah. So that is, I always feel like if you're taking a trip, if we forget something, we can run to the store, not with the G-tube, not with the, and fortunately, like, meeting people like you, I have a great network around. So there have been times where I have just done a shout out on Facebook. Hey, we need a new G-tube. Our backup. It's the wrong size. Whatever. And I've been able to acquire one in a fair amount of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so much preparation and double checking and triple checking. And with Mason, he also can't have any water at all.
Oh, wow.
So we can't do flushes or anything. We need to have Pedialyte for everything. That's
every
the
flush.
only.
Oh, wow. So you really have to make sure you have every single thing. There's not.
And
there's no backup.
There's just so many. No backup. And some of his medications are, he's on a medication that's not FDA approved for his disease, but it's like there's a workaround for that because so that's a medication we would never be able to call into a pharmacy.
Yeah.
So it's just ordering things ahead of time, making sure we have an extra supply in case, you get stuck in Myrtle Beach for an extra week during a hurricane. So just a lot of prep and looking over everything. With this trip that we did in the summer, just to a remote little cabin, it was, and bless her for this, Mason's mom did all the prep. But I swear, it was a week-long trip, and our portion, we had Mason up there for 4 days, and it was like bins of stuff because Mason, and he would not be upset with me for sharing this, but he needs a daily enema.
Yeah.
And he needs to be. We need the shower chair. We need a cushion.
You need all the things that are associated with,
Yeah. So between Mason's stepdad drove his truck with a full, his truck was full, his mom's van was full, and my car was full. We were completely packed down, and that was like, oh, wait, does anybody else have to bring anything? This is all Mason's stuff.
Yeah, you could only just, pack a backpack after that. That's all that's going to fit.
That is what we have learned and what we do. Okay, everybody else gets a backpack, Mason's got the rest covered.
Yeah. I mean, and think about, for people that are listening, think about, airplane travel with all of that stuff. I mean, it's hard. I know I was talking on another episode with my friend who studied abroad, and she studied abroad for 3 months, and we were talking about carrying medications for 3 months, 3 months worth of stuff with her to another country, because you have to bring that with you. You never know if you can get it in another country. And I was saying that
absolutely,
when I was working in South Africa for a little while, I was doing saline infusions at the time, so I had to take 3 months worth of saline with me. And I had a whole suitcase full of medical supplies. And now that I haven't traveled. I've only had my GJ tube for a year, so I've never traveled with it yet, obviously because of the pandemic. I did. I went on a cruise when I just had my G tube, and I had a whole suitcase full of feeds and flushes. And it's you have to think about all this extra stuff and literally carry a whole extra suitcase. And then if you're flying, you have to think about, okay, well, I have to show this to the airline to hopefully see if they'll make sure I can carry this for free and not have to pay for an extra 3-4 bags full of my medical supplies. So that extra cost is something that you have to think about on any trip.
Absolutely. And that's also going 2 hours early. No, that's not going to work.
Right.
We need 4 hours.
Right.
Or with our airport, it was just, we live right outside of Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport, which is wonderful. It's a 15-minute drive for us, which also makes us a great, hey, any of my friends heading out of town, I'm going to park at your house. You can give me a ride at 4 a.m. But they just remodeled, and so I was in the last, some aspects they've been remodeling for years.
Oh yeah.
So I was at the airport, not with Mason, and I was like, oh, these new bathrooms are great. Oh, they've got these huge accessible stalls. And then I lost my mind because they don't have an adult-sized changing table.
Of course.
Okay, so if we're here for 4 hours, where should we change? Should we leave, go out through security again, hope that we did a park thing, our park here and paying for that, and put him on the floor of our van to change him, and then hope that we can make it back in time?
Right.
Where are we supposed to go?
Right.
I mean, otherwise, it's that
otherwise,
is one of my biggest...
in the airport, what are you supposed to do? Change him on the floor? That's...
that is truly what we have had to do. That is the option, which is, okay, so we're hauling another blanket along, which is bulky.
Right.
That has now been on the bathroom floor, too.
Right, right.
The whole thing.
And obviously Mason doesn't want to be on a bathroom floor. Like,
no, absolutely not. I can guarantee you that. And I just think the tens of thousands of dollars they're putting into remodeling, why don't we put at least one accessible changing table in one terminal, because otherwise we've got a kid
right
miserable and uncomfortable.
Like, that's the very least they can do, is put it in one terminal, so at least I could travel there versus nothing. And you're right, they're spending all this money, and it's not, I think it's because it's not a priority, and it's not a priority because nobody thinks about it when they're in development, or if they're in business, or if they're in architecture. Nobody thinks about it unless they have somebody in their family or them themselves need that accessible type thing.
Absolutely. Completely agreed. And that's one of our biggest barriers to even just, Mason accessing his community.
Oh, yeah.
We cannot, the Mall of America, which, if you live in Minnesota, you're probably not going to that often, but we do go there just because they have a full-size adult changing table on the main floor.
Right.
So that's one place we can always know that we can take him and make sure that he is clean and comfortable with dignity, and still able to enjoy his community.
Right. See, now you're going to have to make sure the review is on vacayability for the Mall of America.
I will do that, yes.
It's crazy that people just don't think about those things at all. And you're remodeling. Why not invest in doing these things? And from a business standpoint, if you're investing, let's say extra $10,000, not even an extra $10,000 to make something a little more accessible, from a business standpoint, you're able to serve a greater population, thus bring in more money if you make things accessible. So I don't understand why people don't do that or think about it, even from a strictly business standpoint. Like, you're able to make more money. Your return on investment is so much higher if you make things accessible. You are serving
a huge community, and our community is so, so intertwined. One person tells you about an accessible, you're going to have people coming from, like for us, Wisconsin, that's an easy hop skip. And if you are a wheelchair user, you are going to make that trip over to this activity because it is set up for your specific needs.
Right. Especially the community, chronic illness, disability community is such a tight-knit community. You're right. If one person tells you, look, this is accessible, well, if I'm in your state or even close to your state, I'm going to go there. Just because it is accessible to me, and that's one less thing I have to worry about if I'm on a trip. So from a business standpoint, I don't even understand why it's not a priority. Like, I was looking it up recently. I was doing a lecture for college, and there's about 2 billion people in the world that have some type of disability. And if you include the people, like, obviously Mason's not traveling by himself, so if you include like the whole family, that's about like a 3-4 billion people market that people are just like glossing over. So from a strictly business standpoint, I don't get it. And I have an MBA. Like, I don't understand business people at all. Like, I don't understand. Like, the reason I got an MBA is because my background is in public health. I am a public health person. I love public health. I love health-related things, health advocacy stuff. But what I realized from both a personal and a professional standpoint, that healthcare is a business. So if I wanted to make any changes on a broader systemic scale, I needed a business background so people would be more apt to hire me or listen to me because I had that quote unquote business background too, which is dumb.
Yeah. It is, but
You
it gives
listen.
you that credibility.
Right, right.
That
So I needed an extra degree for credibility, even though I live it like every
yeah.
day. Like it's so
Well,
dumb.
the lived experience counting less than the that is
Then the
something that's so
academic experience,
frustrating to
yeah,
me.
it
Yeah,
doesn't make
exactly.
any sense. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the things I kind of like infiltrate. That's how I feel. I kind of infiltrate the business world, like planting my little
Yeah.
accessibility seeds in there to hopefully make people think about these types of things.
I love that.
So when you travel,
When
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you mentioned that, that's funny because there's a museum that was recently opened here. Oh, I can't even remember what it's called. Um, it's really cool, though, and I would go to it maybe once, on my
Yeah,
own.
yeah.
But they put in an accessible changing table.
Oh,
They have a sensory space that is just like a private little sensory space.
right.
If that's something that you need, awesome. Because of that, that is a place we will frequent. And it is somewhere we would not have frequented just because of, like, okay, yeah, they change the display every now and then. But because they offer these things that we need, yeah, we're bringing more money there that we never would have
You
even
never would have.
considered, really. Yeah, it would have been a one and done type thing. And now it's we'll go twice a year, 3 times a year, because
Just
they
because
offer
it's
what we need, and
accessible.
it gets Mason out of the house and gets us out of the house, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, sort of along those lines, that's what I was going to ask. Do you go to places that are accessible or are special needs friendly, or like do you seek those out, or do you go to places and sort of make them your own, like try and figuring out accessibility? I know for me, I'd rather go somewhere that's already adapted to my needs and not make that extra work for myself.
That is yes. um, I love the idea of seeking out somewhere accessible, and that is something I have definitely done. But I've learned that I can't trust it.
Oh yeah,
So
that's true.
I go with the hope that yes, this will be accessible, but I also go with my own set of everything I might possibly need to make this accessible. Um, Last year we went to California. Mason was not with us on this trip, but we were kind of like seeking out how we could do the same trip with Mason.
Right.
And this hotel, first thing I do when I get to a hotel is, okay, is your pool accessible?
Yeah.
That's the only way Mason's able to be out of his wheelchair, is in the pool. And that's where he's comfy. That's where he can float. He has a great system. So even if he does have a seizure, he can still float and take that weight off of his bones and his back and just relax.
That's so great.
So the pool, yeah, and the pool is a huge deal to me. I would say, I mean, we go to hotels a lot just because of that. Mason goes to a therapy pool, which his mom takes him to 3 times a week. We will take him sometimes, but she does the brunt of that. And I love her for it because I am just sweating by the time that we are in that pool, and it's a warm water therapy pool. And I'm just like, oh, this is miserable. So I'm glad his mom does that mostly. But when we go to a pool, I would say 95% of the time, the chairlift doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or doesn't even have a battery, or doesn't even have a seat on it.
Right.
Nobody knows how to use it. They haven't used it. So
right. Like it's probably never been used since the hotel was opened. Even if other people have tried to use it, it hasn't been used because nobody knows how to use it.
Slightly embarrassing story about this. So we had called a hotel ahead of time. And then we went there and they told us, yeah, we've got a lift. It's great, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we go there and the man at the front desk is like, I don't know how to use it. I don't know where the key is. I don't know if it works. And I'm like, this is a big deal for our family. And I'm kind of going on. And I'm like, my stepson is a wheelchair user. The guy rolls out from behind the counter. He is also a wheelchair user.
Oh.
Okay, maybe I'm preaching to the wrong choir here.
Right,
Sorry, sir.
Right. But then, I mean, I feel like you would think that he would understand a little bit more or be a little bit more
Yeah,
compassionate like you would think.
you would. I think I had a little bit my sassy pants on a little bit too tight that day, maybe. So. but um, but yeah, back to the one in California. So they said that they had an accessible pool, and we get out there. There are 3 steps up, 3 steps down, and the elevator doesn't connect to either one.
Oh.
Yeah.
How
So that's when I
accessible.
take pictures. Yeah. I take pictures and I email and I say, like, I don't want any compensation from you. I probably would if Mason was with us.
Right.
But I need you to look at this and realize how ridiculous this is. If somebody is flying from,
Yeah.
you need to make this accessible to everyone.
Right.
And it's the law.
Right. And that's literally the epitome of why I created Vacayability, because there are so many places you spend all this time planning a trip and looking places up, and okay, I'm looking online, it says it's accessible, but to who? There are so many different types of accessibility needs. Who is it accessible to? So then you call them and ask for a specific thing, and they're like, oh yeah, it's so accessible. Oh yeah, we have a pool lift. But then you get there and it's not accessible. So that's literally the epitome of why I created Vacayability, so people can look up places based upon accessibility from somebody who's actually going there and has accessibility needs, and has an understanding of what it's like to go somewhere and not have it accessible to them.
I love how you've specified the different needs that somebody may have.
Yeah.
And it has opened my eyes a lot to, I haven't been able to use it much. I've submitted one review.
Yeah.
But it's really opened my eyes to looking at, what my friends and peers and other, with other disabilities may need.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, but I'm not always paying attention to like deaf, hard of hearing,
Right, right.
what the needs
And
may be in that area. And
you don't expect somebody to know about every single different type of accessibility. I mean, because there's just so much that encompasses accessibility. So if you have one type of accessibility need, it's like, well, sometimes I don't think about the other ones. And I mean, it's the same with people that don't have any accessibility needs. They don't think about it because it's not happening to them. So it's just really it goes all across the spectrum. Like, people don't think about it unless it's happening to them. And I think the awareness is just so important, because just knowing about it, then it's always in the back of your mind.
Yeah. Like with your question, it's, I research everything to the end, just I research and research, but I always go with the plan in mind that we might have to make this our own accessible space.
Yeah.
And how are we going to do that? And what are we going to have to bring? And, with flight, it's a lot more tricky. If I have friends in that area, I'm gonna shout out and say, hey, do you mind doing this half-hour drive and actually seeing if this is somewhere we could fly for a vacation that would be realistic? And like with our tight-knit community, there's usually someone willing to do that, which is wonderful.
Right. And I mean, that's
sites like yours are
that's
huge
literally
for that.
that's literally the epitome of why. And I guess for selfish reasons, because I spend so much time when I go on a trip just trying to figure out if there's something I can do. Or I like to have these experiences too. Like, it's not like people with disabilities don't want to travel or don't want to experience things, and people think that, and it's so crazy.
Well, and like for you, it appears that you travel, a lot for medical, but a lot for pleasure too.
Right.
So, I mean, the medical end of that, even like the accessibility of certain hospitals, they can be the best hospital, but are they going to have everything that you're going to need when you get there? And what's the public transportation like, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I really started Vacayability was because I was going to Mayo Clinic in Arizona, and I looked up the first 10 things to do in Scottsdale, Arizona was hiking. Like, where am I hiking? With my cane and my walker, where am I really hiking? And yeah, and the Arizona Mayo Clinic is a huge hospital where people come from all over the world to go there. And they do have a hotel on their Mayo Clinic site. But it was so expensive. And
Mm.
then I'm weighing, well, if I stay a little bit further, then I have to find somewhere with transportation, and am I paying for that versus am I being close and paying a little bit more? So it's always thinking about and like planning ahead, like you said, planning and planning and planning. And it shouldn't be that hard
It should
to be able
not.
to travel and enjoy things that everybody else can enjoy.
Absolutely.
All right. So we basically talked about all of the other questions that I had. so so wrapping up the questions, what tips do you have besides planning? Because clearly we had talked about that. What other tips do you have for grown-ups who are taking care of kiddos with special needs, especially in relation to traveling?
Get involved in the groups. Check out sites like Vacayability. Get in
I appreciate
Facebook
that
groups.
plug.
You can pay me later.
All right.
But get the family groups. If you know you're going to a state specifically because of a medical need, like for us, we do everything at Mayo here in Minnesota. But if we were coming from a different state, I would join the Minnesota. There's like a Minnesota special needs support group or whatever.
Right.
Because then you're going to connect with those parents who are going to those specific facilities daily, weekly, monthly, and they get it and they know what you're going to need.
Yep.
So finding parent groups is huge. It's so great to connect that way, and connecting on the nationwide equipment exchange and supply exchange groups, because then when you are in a tight spot and you don't have the right, G-tube, this is a 2.3, right. I need a 2,
right.
Like you can hopefully connect with somebody always knows somebody who is going to be able to help you.
Right.
Just the medical, making sure the insurance links up with wherever you're going, and just trying to find and share with others. I really think that even if a place isn't accessible to us, if they make an effort to be, I go out of my way to give them props everywhere on the internet, give them good reviews, and I will send a card. Thank you so much. We went to that little cabin, and it was not accessible at all. And the bathroom was a closet, and it was a really tough thing. And we had to lift the wheelchair up 3 steps to get even, But they tried so hard, and they did. They were like, we can install trapeze bars in the bathroom to help you. No. It was so nice they did it.
Yeah.
So I just, giving credit where credit is due, and understanding that if you and I, like, if I'm not thinking about a different ability than people who are removed from this world, if they're making any sort of an effort to just appreciate that and keep it moving forward.
Yeah. It is so appreciated if people just make that effort, even if they aren't accessible, but they try to be, and they try to make every effort to accommodate you. It's so much more appreciated than not. All right. Well, I appreciate that. That was a good conversation.
Yes, thank you. That was really fun.
So now we're going to play a little bit of a lightning round travel game. So I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to answer with the first thing that comes to mind. It's not like a quiz or anything. So don't worry. All right. So real quick, 10 questions. What is the favorite place you've ever been?
Ooh,
You don't know because
You
there's
know
so
what?
many?
No, I think find something great everywhere. I feel like you know what I love Playa del Carmen, and I know it's so popular-y, but I could go back there every year gladly.
That's a good one. That's definitely a good one. So attraction that you want to visit that you haven't, or city.
I would really love to visit Auschwitz someday.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one too. So I do this with everybody that I have conversations with, and that gives me travel ideas for the future.
Yeah.
And just add that to the bucket list. All right, beach or
Oh, and
mountains?
dance.
Oh yeah, yeah. Beach or
That's on my list.
mountains?
Beach.
Me too. Window seat or aisle seat on a plane?
Window seat, no questions.
You're the third person to tell me that, and I don't understand.
I have an enormous bladder. I never have to get up during the flight, and I like to just have my pillow on the window.
See, I'm the type of person who likes to get up. I want to get up. I want to stand. Even if I'm not going to the bathroom, I want to be nosy in the aisle and check everybody else out, see what's going on. That's me.
What
That's
are you doing up there, you crazy kids?
exactly. I'm that person. All right, train or bus?
Train.
Yeah, I agree. Not only is it quicker, one thing that you always carry with you besides your phone.
Oh, I was gonna say my phone. Probably my Kindle.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Do you prefer electronic books versus handheld books?
No, but I prefer not having to haul around a bunch of books.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Something you always forget to pack.
A razor.
All right. Luckily, that's something you can get almost anywhere, or you can just not care about it.
Yeah.
A favorite self-care activity?
I guess just finding somewhere to go for one night, just somewhere unique, like grabbing an Airbnb is like, that is my self-care activity. I don't do it all the time, but more than I should.
Yeah. By yourself?
I like to.
All right. No, that's perfectly fine, especially with a house full of people. A house full of men at that.
Yeah.
All right. Best piece of travel advice you've either gotten or given?
Just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Just, yep.
All right. Well, that was it. That wasn't very stressful, was it?
No, that was okay.
All right. Well, that's our time with Javi, unfortunately. I want to thank you for having this conversation with me and giving our listeners and me some insight about things that I wouldn't think about either. And that's the importance of sharing these stories, is getting people to think about things that they never thought about before, or relating to somebody on a level and connecting with somebody on a level with common things. So I appreciate talking with you.
Well, thank you, and thanks for such thoughtful questions and just giving me this space to share, and it just zipped right by. I really appreciate it.
Well, to learn more about Mason's disease, you can go to the National Niemann-Pick Disease Foundation website at www.nnpdf.org. And tune into our next episode. Subscribe on all platforms. Follow on our social media at Vacayability. And you can also visit our website at www.vacayability.com to rate and review your favorite places, businesses, hotels, attractions, anywhere you're going on a vacation, based upon different types of accessibility. Thanks, Havi.
Thanks.